All right, so I get the great pleasure of entertaining your mind while your body is digesting. Thank you for having me, and I'm very excited to have this conversation with you. As was mentioned in the introduction, I've spent the last few years on the road working with Microsoft partners around the world. And my intention today is really not so much to share my personal opinion about what I see happening out in the marketplace and with your customers and with your businesses, but what I've heard from partners like yourselves, everyone in the industry who's struggling with the same challenges in different global markets, from Dubai to South Africa to Australia to all over Europe. So I'll highlight today what I think I'm hearing out in the market around what are the key levers that you want to be focusing on to try to shift in order to position your company for the future. And I know a big part of that, and the whole reason we're here is about accelerating cloud. So of course, that's going to be the underlying core piece of this conversation. So I won't spend a lot of time telling you about my background, but like many of you, I've been in this industry for 30 years, and we've seen a lot of change. But I don't think I've ever seen anything like what's happening right now. We've got two very specific dynamics happening that are converging to completely disrupt everything that we know and how we've been running our businesses for the last 20, 30 years. So of course, the first one is cloud technology, right? Customers have discovered cloud. They're starting to move some of their workloads to the cloud. They're trying to wrap their head around, I should be in the cloud. I have no idea what that means. Can you help me? And so we have a technological change. But at the same time, probably more importantly, we're also seeing the second disruption, which is our revenue model. The way customers want to buy is changing. Right? We've made this first sort of painful shift in many cases, and you all being managed service providers, I think predominantly, have made this shift faster than some of the dynamics or other business application areas because you understand the value of recurring service and recurring revenue and having a relationship longer. Right? Some of the big AX, ERP type partners are really struggling with this new model because they're used to multi-million-dollar deals up front. They get all the cash, and then they don't really have to worry too much about whether the customer gets a return on the investment a year or two down the road. But you're in there every month or every week and building a relationship, adding value. So as much as I know you have sort of made this shift in your mind, and you've done it on a licensing standpoint with Office and other things like that, there's a lot more for us to do in terms of what does this new cloud business model look like. And I just want to kind of look at what's happening in terms of this cloud adoption, right? When you first all started selling the concept of cloud, what was the value proposition you said to customers as to why they should do this? Not a rhetorical question. Right? Customers say this, I heard about the cloud, why should I do it? What's your first answer? Efficiency and economization. Okay. Is that working? Costs, right? Didn't we say this is very much a cost problem? You're going to save money on hardware, and all these other things, right? And who are we talking to? IT, right? They care about cost. They care about hardware, they care about maintenance and support and backups and all these things. So what we've seen over the last 10 years is this concept of cloud, which seemed really scary and frightening. We sold to an IT buyer who understood technology, and we had a very technical conversation. And my guess is a lot of you in this room have built your businesses starting as an IT, technical, computer science, maybe person, and evolved your business from there, okay? So we were very comfortable. We speak the same language. We come from the same tribe. It's easy for us to understand the value proposition and have a conversation about things we are emotional about and care about. But what we're seeing is the customer's evolving and changing. And we need to change our story along with that, right? This is no longer just an IT project or an initiative that's about cutting costs, making your hardware, maintenance reduced, et cetera. Today, technology for every company, small business or larger, in any industry, it's what's going to help them stay in business, right? There's 2 pizza shops down the street from my house. I travel a lot. My kids are usually self-fed. And so I'm on the 1-800 dial the pizza down the street. There's one where I call. Every time I call, I have to place my order, tell my address, give my credit card information. I tried the pizza shop across the street. They have me on some viewing CRM system. When I call in, they say, "Hi, Sharka, would you like a extra large pizza, half pepperoni, half ham and pineapple? Do you want it delivered to your house at this address, and do you want me to put it on the same credit card as last time?" Absolutely, right? And this is a very tiny mom and pop pizza shop down the street. So every industry is being disrupted, and every industry has to change their business processes. And we need to keep up as quickly and offer solutions, not just to IT managers or technical people, but to that business owner of that pizza store, and help him or her understand what it means to be in the cloud in a way that doesn't say you need to transform your business to the cloud, right? That sounds kind of scary to me. Does that mean I'm gonna die and go to heaven? I don't know what that means. So we have to do a much better job in telling the story. So that's one of the key transitions. It's from a marketing and a positioning and communication standpoint. Now, if you look at what is it that has allowed cloud to start to penetrate, where's the adoption, right? Think back. When was the first time you used a cloud application? In your own personal life or business life? Email. Yes, right? We all went to email first. Now, why did we go to email? What was the emotional driver? And by the way, behind every technology decision is not a rational, logical decision. It's something is painful enough that I'm going to change my behavior, spend some money, and invest some time into learning something new. And that's uncomfortable. It was free, okay, that was compelling. Why else? Exactly. I'm at home, I didn't have that file, or I didn't have that email. Ugh, right? There was a frustration point. That's what triggered me to go and figure it out. What was the second thing you used in the cloud, other than email? Chat, okay. And what else? Google was free, right? For me, I think about when I was always in marketing, I had to send big files. Anybody have that problem? Do you remember that? Tried to send a file, email server kicked it back, okay, right? And you signed up to whatever free video or data transfer service at the time was free, that you could get it to them in the next hour, okay? Again, it was a pain point. I couldn't do something I had to do my job, so I went and figured it out. Uncomfortable, not technically savvy, whatever, but I made it work because I had to. I might have complained and been uncomfortable. But would you go back? No, right? So a lot of the change that we're all going through is really uncomfortable, and we're kind of like, oh, do I really have to do this? But once you're on the other side, right, we kind of forget how painful it was, and we would never go back. I ask partners a lot, I say, did you transform your licenses to a recurring monthly revenue model? Yes. You all did with Office and the cloud, et cetera. Would you go back? Anybody here go back to pre-recurring license revenue model on Office? Right? No, you all prefer it, but it still made a whole bunch of things change in our organization. So part of what I'm looking at here is if we think about what the customer's psychology is, right? They moved to the cloud because it was a cost savings and it was a technical person making a technical decision that they understood it. Now you've got business people, right, that are using email. That's comfortable now. I can use that in the cloud. I can do file transfer, use OneDrive or something. Hey, I get it. So my fear around moving to the cloud in my personal life, right, has shifted. So what's going to happen naturally is I'm going to start moving more and more of my workloads, more and more of my daily job to the cloud. And so I think about as a marketer, I got frustrated with IT and I wanted to do a customer survey. I'm like, how hard is it for you guys to let me send out a customer survey? So I went online, I found SurveyMonkey, I paid the $30 or whatever, and I sent my survey out 2 hours later. Right? So we're increasingly seeing the decision maker evolving from just a technical person making a buying decision based on, backup and all that, to having to translate this into business impact and business value. right? Now you might think security and backups. How do you get the CEO excited, right? So what's the new story? Do we give him product demos and show him how great it is and how slick it is? No. What's the why behind the technology? Fear. Thank you. Yes. Okay, back to that, there's an emotional driver behind it. So what am I afraid of if I'm a business owner? Loss of revenue, loss of customers, employees stealing my data, being attacked, right? It's about being safe. Right? So part of our transition is how do we move away from talking about products and technology and getting really excited about it, and I know you all love it, right? To translating that into language, right? Earlier we heard the conversation about the security and backup, and are you having that conversation in one conversation, right? It is about being safe. It's about protecting my business, my data, the things that are most important. All right, so change in conversation. So part of this evolution, what's happening is we're seeing office productivity is the absolute first workflow to move to the cloud in terms of the business users and the employees, email, document management, all of those opportunities. So of course, I know you're playing in all there. The question is, where do you go next? How do you add value on top of that? How do you cross-sell, upsell, and penetrate and activate further into those organizations? And we heard that comment earlier. And this is one example from the insurance industry, right? So you see CRM tends to be one of those workloads that seems a bit not risky. That might be the first thing I move to the cloud. I need a customer portal, or I need to get some customer information or something. So it might be something I could dabble in. Analytics, right? Customers are starting to realize I have all this information in these databases and all that. What do I do with it? How can I make sense of it? They're hearing about AI, and they're not quite there yet necessarily, but they can think about intelligence in a way that relates to their business. And then, of course, more and more, guess what's the last thing to move to the cloud? What's the last thing a company is going to move to the cloud? Their core ERP financials. That's the biggest, riskiest, scariest workload to move. That's all my most important data. That's my lifeblood, right? And so part of this, think of this transition as a emotional confidence transition. I'm going to take a small baby step, and then when I'm comfortable, I might put my whole leg in, and eventually comes my whole body. All right. Now, earlier I heard the comment about not scaring you. My intention is not to scare you, but I am just trying to create a bigger framework. Right? So I've worked with hundreds of partners around the world, across from Azure to Dynamics to ISVs. Everyone's trying to ask the question, who am I and where do I fit in this new world? What's my role? How do I, ISVs are starting to go direct and do implementation. There's traditional VARs and resellers that are starting to build IP and launch ISV divisions. So there's a lot of change in the ecosystem, in the market, and everyone's trying to figure out, what do I do well? A few principles, though, to think about. This is research around how much money is spent on cloud right now. And you'll notice the biggest piece in the middle is software as a service, right? Now, earlier this morning we heard about infrastructure as a service, right? Which is obvious, natural, easy place for you to play. But a lot of partners are starting to think, how do I move up? How do I get a bigger piece of where all that money is being spent on the cloud? You'll see at the top there's business process as a service. So most companies out there are going to start to try and own that, right? Now you own the relationship. You are the trusted advisor right now, right? And there's going to be all these other people trying to get in to get the business application part of your business. So you have to figure out a strategy. Do you start to move upstream and sell more value? Do you partner with a Microsoft Dynamics partner to do some of that part of the business when the customer wants it? Right? We've seen mergers and acquisitions, CRM partners being bought by ERP partners and companies to try and have a broader skill set to be able to deliver. But everyone's in a race to own your customer, right? And your job is to preserve them or to find out what it is that you do better than everyone else that's trying to get at that account. All right, workloads. I mentioned they're slowly moving. The safest, less risky ones. The other workloads that move is where I don't have a solution today, right? If I don't have any document management, I'll move that. SharePoint's looking interesting because my stuff's a mess. If I have an ERP system and I've had it for 20 years, I'm going to be a lot less comfortable switching because I already have something that meets my needs, even if I've outgrown it and it's got big Band-Aids, and right? So think about which parts of your customer's business are not yet automated or efficient, etc. All right. And I want to talk about change in terms of, we can make a change. Right? I can, hire a new person, I can fire somebody, and I make a change in my organization. But for any of you who have been married and are no longer married, you know that change of, I've gone from being married to divorced might take a day, right? But there's this transition of, wait a minute, there's a whole new life and a whole new experience here, and I have to learn to be different, right? I can hire a new president or CEO of a corporation, but the whole organization takes a while to change, for the culture to change, for people's behavior to change, right? So we can change, we can create a new product, sell a new product, add a new solution or a service, but it doesn't mean that our DNA has changed, our organization has adapted. And that's really, I think, what's slowing most of us down, is how do we grow? How do we scale, right? How do we get out from under the constraints that we have holding our business back now? The other thing we're discovering while all this is happening is how people buy technology has shifted, right? For 30 years that I've been doing marketing, right from when I launched Simply Accounting back in the 80s to when we sold ATI to AMD in the US, to when I created the CRM product category and launched Pivotal. We've always talked about technology as products and figured if it had good features and it could, if I had a bigger list of features than my competitor, people would buy it, right? We built it and they would come, we would do a demonstration or show it and they'd get super excited. Right? What we're learning is people do not make logical, rational decisions. Anybody had an RFP that they've responded to that ended up where you were for sure that we've got it, they really like us, we're gonna win this one? And then at the last minute, you get the phone call saying, we really like you guys better, but we're going with someone else. Hands up if you've had that experience where you lost it at the last minute and you were sure you forecasted that as like 90%. Yeah, so what happened? Was your product not as good as the other person? Or your service? Probably not, right? Somewhere in there was an emotional decision that someone either had a relationship that they knew somebody else that said, oh, we work with these guys, you should work with them, or I've heard something about them, or some emotional hijacking happened during that process. And it usually has to do with fear, risk, right? Well, wait a minute, how big are these? What, they only have 4 employees? I don't know. We're gonna trust our business to them, right? What's their background? How long have they been doing this? Maybe it's a credibility and trust thing, which has to do with safety and risk for the customer. So we need to start thinking about more of the emotional drivers behind the decisions and not so much focusing on the technology, right? It's why do they need the technology? What's the impact, right? I can buy backup or I can buy a security service, but what does that mean? It means I can sleep at night without worrying, right? And yet our language on our websites, on our brochures, on our emails and things does not reflect, here's why you need to spend the money. And if any of you have children, you know that fear is a much stronger motivator than reward, right? So oftentimes, yeah, I'll invest in that or I'll do that when I have the time, when I have the money. Well, we say this in our own business, don't we? Right? Oh, we'll do that, but we're just too busy right now. Or that's a priority, but we just haven't had time to do that. So what is it that pushes you over? You lose a customer, or Microsoft makes a change and you don't have a choice, right? All right, so why do we hate change? Why are we uncomfortable? Right? Because during this period, we've built our business this way for the last 10, 20, 30 years. It's worked for us, right? We're successful, so we're gonna stick to doing what's familiar and that works. Moving over here, suddenly, how am I feeling? I'm selling new products I don't know very much about. I'm into all these new implementations or services with customers, and there's all this risk and uncertainty. How am I feeling? Even though I logically get it, this is the right thing to do, I'm changing my business, I'm doing new things. How do you feel? Nervous. How else? Okay, why are you all in this room today? It's whatever made you get out of your seat at the office with all your customer demands and all your emails and proposals and all the things you should be doing right now. You're sitting here instead. Why? I'm going to get left behind. Fear of loss, right? Fear of risk, fear of not knowing, uncertainty, all of these things, right? And ultimately, it's how am I going to stay in business and be relevant and keep customers, and how am I going to scale and grow, and, what if they learn something I missed? Okay, so change, uncomfortable. Lots of reasons. Same with your customers. Anyone had an opportunity end up in a no decision? Yeah? Right? So it's not that they chose a competitor. They just said, I think we'll make that decision later. Or we're going to go spend that money on buying something else. Right? So is that the customer being a bad customer? Whose fault is that? It's ours. We didn't create enough risk in their mind to go over the cost and the uncomfortableness of transforming or moving to the cloud or migrating or doing whatever, because it's way safer and comfortable to stay where they are. Right? How do you overcome a fear or an objection when a customer says, I don't know about the cloud and all this, it's unsafe, it's, uncomfortable, I don't really trust it yet? How do you handle that objection today? Anyone? What do you tell them? Okay, so tell them a story about someone else, or a good experience or a bad experience, right? Oh, it's actually not that hard, and here's some evidence to support that, right? Usually, the only reason I'm going to change if I'm afraid to do something is because I'm afraid of something else more, right? You create a bigger fear. Now, I have 3 kids, and I say, okay, who's doing unloading the dishwasher? All 3 of them are, not me, not my turn. You did it last time, I did it last time. And I say, okay, so who's going to go clean up the dog poo in the backyard? And whoever doesn't do that gets to unload the dishwasher. Now I got to line up, right? Everybody wants to unload the dishwasher. What? Nobody wants to do that? That's okay, I do it all the time anyway. So, right? So the only way to overcome an objection is with a bigger, more powerful one that scares them to death. Now, you're in the perfect industry, compliance, right? Risk, breaches. Oh my God, the press is going crazy doing your job for you, right? Remind them, right? Earlier this morning, we heard about the social selling. Start tweeting out or LinkedIn, those stories about yet another company gets hacked. Yet another company went out of business. Sears is going out of business, right? Anybody in the retail sector should be sending that out to their customers. Don't let this be you. No, I'm not that serious, but you know what I'm saying. All right. Okay, how are you growing? Are you growing fast enough? What's your average growth? These are some recent stats out of Microsoft with 400 partners in 12 different countries. So those in the under $250,000 are on average growing about 26% in the last 12 months. The ones up to $1 million from there are around 30% growth, just so you can gauge where you're at. And the 1 to 10 million is sort of in the 30% range. So I don't know what your growth is, and if you feel comfortable with the level. Some of you might be growing faster than this and having growth pains. And also in the last 12 months, all of these partners on average had about 30% of their revenue from cloud business, right? So if you're not there yet, you should be moving towards that. Just to give you some idea around growth in areas. Now, I don't know how many of you know the pivotal story, but CRM was created in 95. When I had sort of a vision of what I thought a centralized customer information system might look like. And there was 10 of us in a little office smaller than this. You can see the tiny little orange dot on the left side. And in 5 years, we grew from 10 employees when I started to 900. And from 0 in revenue, from when we had the concept and idea, to 100 million a year in 5 years. So this was at a time of transition, growth, right? We're in Canada. There's a whole bunch of factors, right? Any of you having a hard time hiring good people and keeping up with all the changes in certifications and training and expertise. So I know it's not easy, but there's a lot of amazing opportunities for Canadian companies, and not just here at home, right? With the cloud, it introduces a whole new opportunity to also scale outside of just having Canadian customers, right? As we get better to deploy over distance and support customers virtually and have 24/7 support using technology and AI and all kinds of other things. So I just kind of want to summarize for you what I think are the core areas of your business that are probably going to be impacted the most, that you might want to prioritize. And I'll just kind of walk through each of these in the next couple minutes. So the first one I already mentioned, your revenue is changing, right? You already have managed services, so you're starting, whether 10% of your revenue or 90% is recurring, the higher the better. And I won't repeat what was said earlier this morning, but it absolutely makes sense for us to do that, right? Not because Microsoft wants us to or because the industry thinks we should. It's customers are demanding it. They do not want to pay you a whole bunch of money up front to go do a whole bunch of customization or configuration and all of this work and then take the risk. They want you to do everything and they'll just pay for it as they go, right? And the partners and companies playing in the business space, of course, are being impacted by this even more. They can't wrap their head around these huge projects. For you, it might be a small project or it might be a one-day engagement, right? But the question is, how do you turn that into a monthly recurring revenue stream? Not just products, but services. And Mark will be up later today, and he'll drill down into this conversation in a lot more detail. And the simplest example I'll say, let's say you were going to go hire someone to build a website, right? Is that a project? Yeah, usually, right? You would give it to 2 or 3 different companies. You say, hey, here's my budget. I need a new website. How much is it going to cost? And what do they tell you? It's complicated. It depends. Oh, that sounds like somebody I know. What do you mean it depends? That's all you guys do. You build websites every day. You got to know roughly. Give me a range. Nope. Need to come look under the covers first. Right? So how would you turn a website project into a recurring service revenue model? Okay, yeah, maintenance, SEO, someone said, right? So let's say instead of $12,000 for the year, $12,000 for a project, okay? I get my new little website, and that's cheap. It won't be that much. Let's say instead I said to you, okay, for $1,000 a month for the next 12 months, and you can pay monthly, you're going to get a website. Every month I'm going to give you a report on how all your traffic, your conversion rates. It's going to include 1 or 2 new assets, a new blog. Maybe we'll do 1 video or something. And actually, instead of $1,000 a month, it's going to be $2,000 a month. Right? Are you going to turn it off in 12 months and stop paying me? Not if I can show you that you're getting more leads as a result and you've got twice the traffic that you did 6 months ago, right? And I'm going to continue to add value every month. I'm not just doing one thing for you today and then you've got this, right? I haven't just done it once. I'm creating value. And by doing that, I have to add more things. SEO optimization, right? I'm including services and adding value, and it's not about what I did. Now, do you care if I spend 20 hours a month on your website or an hour? No. What are you paying for? An outcome, right? So think about pricing changing. We've been a per user, per device, right, per customer, et cetera, in a model. What is it that security? What's that worth to your company to be safe, to have your data protected? How much would you pay? And then reverse engineer. What is it that we can do from a product and a service standpoint to ensure that safety? Any of you pay for life insurance? They figured this out a long time ago. I don't plan on dying anytime soon, but you know what? I pay every month and happy to. And am I going to wake up one day and go, today I'm cutting off my life insurance? The nonprofits are figuring this out. Have you ever noticed? I tried to give one $100 as a donation. I think it was the Red Cross or something. They're like, sorry, we take credit cards only and it has to be a monthly payment. You don't want my $100? Nope, can't take it. They left. I'm not kidding, right? They understand. What am I going to do one day? Wake up 6 months from now and say, I'm going to cut off the Red Cross. I am no longer sending kids to school. Today's the day I'm going to phone them and do that. Not a chance, right? So it's packaging, pricing, changing how we sell and what we sell and what is value-based pricing, as opposed to being so caught up with all the other kind of metrics. That also means we're starting to get away from utilization rates. If you have consultants or technical people or this time and materials, right? You figure out your hourly rate and you give a customer and that's 5 hours for this job. Get away from the project-based, right? We need to start increasing margins. If you have services, you probably have maybe a 35% margin, right? Once you start to say, hey, you get up to, this much per month at a flat fee, I'll continue to pay that. It's like the gym, right? They figured this out. Anybody have a gym membership? Yeah. I know how often you all go. It's 2 to 3 times a week for those of you who are sort of regular. Oh yeah, look, everyone's head's nodding. And then there's people like me where you get a nice email that says, Sharka, we miss you. You haven't been to the gym for 3 months. High margin, I can promise you that, right? And then there's those psychos like my son who goes every single day for 2 hours, right? They're losing money on him, right? But if you figure out this model, you can start to say, what is the most number of calls I get for break fix or whatever every month? What's the worst case scenario, right? And what's the average? And we're going to price it to make sure I make good margin on the average. And then on the few that go over, I'm not going to worry about it because there's enough margin in there to fund that. And then there's going to be some who never use it, and that's going to be high margin because they're just going to keep writing the check every month. Right? So we get into this recurring revenue stream and adding value instead of product. Now, why do we want recurring revenue? This is a Salesforce revenue slide. Does your financials look like that? Right? I don't think there's anyone in the room who doesn't want their revenue to look like that. And anybody planning on selling their business? Right? Most of us in the room have been doing this for 30 years. We're like, how do I hang in there another 5, 10 years and sell this thing? Or grow it, right? And make sure it has some value. Or maybe I'll give it to my kids. So we know that valuations are 3 to 5 times revenue when you're in a SaaS or a recurring revenue model versus running around getting new customers all the time. And by the way, it's expensive to keep finding new customers and doing proposals and winning them and investing all that cost of acquisition. It's too high, right? It's way easier to have a customer and keep selling them more stuff, getting more services, more licenses, and extracting and penetrating your installed base. So these are some numbers just around ISVs, but that have gone sort of like Adobe, who went in 2013, they made a massive change to the cloud, and to see some of the impacts on revenue. So we're seeing 2 to 5 time multiples if you plan on selling your business across the board for sort of recurring versus non. M&A activity, right? Part of what you want to do, and Mark will talk more deeply about this, is specialize in something. What are you good at? What's that niche you're going to carve out? Because a lot of the services you offer, and even I say this to the Dynamics partners, right? Configuration, customization, training, all of these things are commodities. I can go hire somebody technical to do all of that. What do I value? Do you know my business? Do you understand my specific needs? Right? Lots of different ways to specialize, but you have to pick what you're good at. The other is packaging up transparency, right? Customers do not want to have to talk to you and have a big proposal and a long conversation. Just give me an idea of how much it costs. Right? Anyone done a reno? You call 3 people, architects or whatever, how much is it going to cost? Oh, it's complicated, it depends. I had one the other day, I was trying to get my cement done on my stairs, and he says, well, I can't tell you. I said, you're the cement guy. You do this all day long for the... And he was bragging about how he'd been doing it for 40 years. I'm like, you really can't tell me. Nope. He goes, I know. It sounds like I'm asking for a blank check. I am. He did. I said, okay, come on. That's minimum and maximum. He's like, oh, 5 to 10 grand. Oh, was that so hard? Right? So do you have to put the exact, like in this example, it says, X per user. If you're confident and you're comfortable, you can put the dollar amount. If you're not sure, how about starts at $200 a month, and here's all the services and that's included. Starts at, no one can hold you to it, but at least you're going to be the first one I'm going to call, right? Transparency, trust. Hey, these guys have their pricing, I'm going to call them first. The other ones make me work too hard to find out how much this costs and what's involved. And not just licenses, right? I mean, it's easy to put office pricing up there. You could all do it today, and if you're not, please do, right? They'll bias towards you and call you first before they call the other 3 websites they look at. The other is bundling up your service offerings. Always have 3, right? An entry point that's super cheap, but hopefully not too many people will pick. That's your pipeline. You start with those 2 users or 3, or it's really small, where normally you wouldn't waste your time and money maybe. They will grow, right? That 5-user company will turn into 7 to 9 to 10 way faster. And then the middle one should be what you actually want to sell, right? Everyone has this psychological, it's called the center stage effect. If you give me 3 choices, I always pick the middle because it's safe somehow, right? And then the one on the right should be super expensive. In this case, this one's backwards. The one on the right should be the most expensive. Why? Yes, you've got it. To make the middle one look like a super good deal, right? And by the way, that's the one for those really high maintenance customers who want to text you at 2 in the morning on Sunday and have you come drive down to their office and save their life, right? You're doing it now, you're just not charging them extra. So create a package for them. This is the premium package. You get everything 24 hours a day, right? The middle one is, okay, you can call us 9 to 5, somebody will pick up. The first one might be, you don't get to talk to us, it's email only. And by the way, you gotta wait 24 hours, not same day response, right? So you can vary the level of service based on each of the packages. Okay, so lots of examples. And by the way, if you don't do this, your competitors will, right? And then I'm gonna go to whoever's easiest to do business with. It's about simplicity. They're already overwhelmed. You give them 3 fixed migration packages, right, that start out with some basics. And I know this is risky and it's hard and you think, well, it depends, I don't really know. It doesn't mean you have to stop doing the it depends, call us, it's complicated, we'll give you a proposal. Just add this as a possibility, right? To get those people to say, I saw the packages, can you tell me more about it? Okay, now they've called you, they've self-identified, right? This new cloud buyer does not want you to know who they are. And you do not know about them until they're almost 70% of the way through the buying cycle. They've already pretty much made a decision before they phone you, right? So you want to influence them much earlier. Tiering your pricing, churn rates, right? In this new cloud world, you can't just get a new customer and forget about them. We have to invest in post-purchase marketing and sales. Measuring, are they getting a return on investment, right? How many attacks did you prevent, or some way to quantify and prove that they're safer with you than without you, or else it's too easy to turn it off and say we've got other priorities, or I don't see the value of this. So we have to have a longer term relationship building cycle, sales and marketing. Okay, people, right? We've been hiring very technical people. Security and safety. Guess where Microsoft's hiring all their new employees for the security and safety areas of their business? Are they technical computer science people? Who are they? Ex-military, retired police officers. They don't know anything about technology. Why would you hire them in your security practice? It's a different problem today, right? A virus attack used to be something that would go on your computer and we'd go and remove it after the fact. Now we're about preventing attack. That takes a whole different methodology and a model, right? When there's an attack, a police officer is going to try and figure out how that happened. Military is going to try and prevent it in the first place. Their mindset is different, and they don't have to worry about the technology and the solution, right? They're selling protection and safety and approaching it differently, case-based, sort of. The buyer's also changing. These are millennials coming through who are starting their businesses and growing. They're impatient. They're all on social media. They don't want to talk to people on the phone, right? So we have to sort of change our engagement too. I know you're used to going on site and having lunch and a conversation and building, and I'm never going to say anything's better than that, but I'll tell you it's expensive, right? And it's slow, and we can leverage, and you're missing out on a big chunk of the audience that never gets to the point where they tell you their name or have lunch with you. So think about the business line managers becoming just as influential and driving decisions as the IT people. New expertise, developing new competencies and skills. Internally, and this is where SureWeb is such an amazing partner, I think, is our own internal billing processing and managing our accounts and setting them up and training and all of these things, extending support, having it 24/7, or all those different demands that customers are making. If we want to scale quickly, right, it's hard to do on our own. And SureWeb is really investing in all of those sort of, partner out of a box, marketing out of a box, sales support, technical support services, augmenting you to be able to do what you're good at and not have to worry about some of the billing and processing and all those types of things that can be holding your business growth back, right? And if I know, for those of you who have been technical background, I'm sure accounting and billing and finance and all that stuff is not exactly your favorite thing to spend time on. All right, same with deployment and getting customers up and running, right? Smaller projects, get them up and running quickly, show them an impact. They'll spend more money because now they'll have trust, they'll see some return on their investment, and they can move, okay? So figuring out how you can deploy faster at a lower cost and get the customers to have a business impact. Because remember, in this new pay-as-you-go model, if I'm not getting value, I'm gonna turn it off. All right? They're not very patient. Our own internal processes in terms of selling solutions, right? What's your migration path for your existing customers? Now, some of you have done a fantastic job of mapping that out and you've already got customers, but teach them. They don't know what it looks like. They don't know what the steps are, right? They're afraid. And perception is reality. So all of this is how do we simplify it? Use infographics, right? Give them case studies and stories about how quick it was and how easy and painless. Right? Package up a migration package that gives them a fixed cost and a fixed timeline so they don't think, oh, this is going to take forever. We're going to lose a year of productivity while we're switching all our systems, and this is really scary. All right, expanding your footprint in terms of product offering. SureWeb has lots, and they're doing a lot of strategic analysis and trying to figure out what it is that makes sense for you to go from where you are today to that next level of capability or product offering. Industry. Right? If your specialization is right now not clear to you in terms of other than we do the technical part or break fix or whatever, think about industries. Law firms all have common issues and challenges. They start to have document issues. They have privacy document issues. They have a whole bunch of workflow and document management flow. Tax accountants have same issues, different industry. Right? So now I could sell to law firms and I could sell to accounting firms, and they're going to have some of the same project management issues and document problems, SharePoint here, et cetera. So I can start to leverage what I know and do it repeatedly, so I reduce the risk if I start to fix price or package things up. And the customer says, oh, you have a whole bunch of other customers that are law firms or accounting firms, right? I trust you more, and I believe that you know my business. And lastly, of course, how we have to market and sell outside of our product offering is going to change. Our positioning, our story, right? Going from technical product demos and features to selling a value proposition to the customer, making an impact on their business, keeping them competitive, helping them stay in business. And there's a whole lot of new kind of areas that we can start to leverage both technology and the business impact. And Microsoft, of course, is a great partner for that because they're investing in so many new Azure-based services and things for you to leverage. So make sure you pick a specialization and articulate it. And at the end here, I have a link to a value proposition generator. Getting your first draft of your clear one-sentence value proposition is kind of hard. Usually when I say, so why do customers buy from you? And I get like a 10-minute dialogue. It's hard to say it in one sentence. So we've got a little tool to help you do that. And one of the last few points I'll leave you with is marketing is the new sales, right? We've been relying on referrals and having good customer service to win us new revenue and new customers. As I mentioned, this millennial is very digital. People are relying on social media, and I don't mean Facebook and things like that, but hearing from other reviews, analyst reports, right? They're influenced by what they read online, right? All of you look at LinkedIn probably. And we are increasingly seeing that people are making decisions and calling you and saying, I'd like Office, please. I want to buy it from you. And you're like, how did you hear about us? Well, I did my research, right? You didn't influence that decision anymore. They're coming from other places, and they need to find you. So you have to invest in SEO and all these other things. And, videos, try and tell your story in a digital medium. And the new cloud partner, right, has a whole new look. It has a number of different metrics. We're measuring churn, right, not some of the traditional things that we used to measure. We have to focus on our recurring revenue, not our one-time revenue. So we didn't measure it before, we need to measure it today and build that into our business practices. And lastly, this is not a one-time customer acquisition cycle, right? This is not just about getting new customers all the time. We need, in 12 months when that renewal comes, you should not be going, oh yeah, right, John's renewing this week. Somebody better call him and get his credit card number or another invoice for the next 12 months, right? There should be a cycle, a process, both from sales, making sure they're optimized, all their licenses are activated, they're getting value. And you know what? Call them and say, we see you have 50 licenses and you're only using 30. Why don't we reduce your bill for next month? The amount of credibility and trust you'll gain, right, will get you back those other licenses later when they grow and they expand. So it's about communicating and being partners with your customers for the future. So there's a link to the value proposition generator. Thank you so much. Hopefully you've done digesting now, and the next speaker will have you more active. And I think, are we doing questions and answers? Okay, great.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
If you have any questions, please raise your hand, and we'll make sure we'll get a microphone out to you. What are some of the social media feeds that our partners today can look at right away to get a 5-minute of the start of their day to get some understanding of what's happening in the industry today, maybe a latest malware attack or something they could use so they can go back to their current customers and say, hey, I know we haven't spoken in a while, but maybe the Office Protect we've seen a spike, we've seen something, activity that's been unique. But what are some of the feeds that they can just look at when they have breakfast in the morning, they can think about throughout the day and which customers could profit off of that?
Well, actually, and I think you raise a bigger question, which I might address both, actually. So on a industry level, I mean, all of us struggle to keep up, right? And at every Microsoft conference, I hear this. How do we know what's going on when you guys change pricing or whatever? So I've heard from the partner community, Yammer is one of the best places. A lot of employees at Microsoft go on Yammer to find out what's going on. So I think just in terms of keeping up with our industry, just like our customers, social proof, right? Listening to what others are saying in the industry. So industry influencers, tracking trends, of course, events and conferences. But in terms of customers, right, I hear Twitter a lot. I'm not a huge fan of Twitter anymore. I think it's having a bit of an identity crisis. So unless you have news to send out on a regular basis, I'm not sure anybody really goes there anymore. Facebook, unless you're selling to nonprofit or some segment that actually looks at Facebook and has that's part of their social kind of environment, that's not the best place to go find new customers. LinkedIn, I find, is the best investment, right? And educate, right? You guys know security, you know backup, you know protection, you know document management, you know SharePoint, all this stuff. And it's not about selling, right? The whole thing about social media is you can't sell. And not even just social media, all our marketing, right? Part of this shift is they're self-educating, and you want to make sure you bias them and make them trust you by teaching them something they didn't know. And then they'll call you, and they'll have a relationship with you. Right?
One other thing you brought up is that you had such a huge explosive growth, 900 employees, $100 million in such a short time frame. For partners that are stuck, I mean, they've been stuck for a couple of years, maybe it's just been referrals, word of mouth, whatever it is. What do they have to do in order to double their revenue? Or what do they have to do in order to have that same explosive growth? Right.
So I think two things. One we heard this morning is improving the sales process. Right? I think we've been a little bit lazy, and it's been easy. You wait for the phone to ring, it's a referral, and you just kind of close them. So you have a high close rate. I think having more systematic and strategic selling process and investing in marketing. I mean, most of the partners around the world I talk to, guess how much they spend on their marketing budget, percentage of revenue? 0.5 to 1.5%.
Wow.
Right? The absolute minimum in business to business, I mean, forget about how bad tech is, right, is 9 to 12%. So if you look at your annual revenue, take at least minimum 7% of that and spend it on your website, spend it on, ad search engine optimization or SEM or whatever, and build some assets, do some videos, right? And that's why SureWeb's amazing. They're realizing that you don't have the time and energy and skills necessarily to go and build customer videos or case studies and things, right? So they're trying to package some of this up for you, but leverage it, go in there, see what they have, reuse it, resend it, right? It's really critical in this new cloud world and the new buyer.
Well, I'd rather be the child that put up the dishes in the dishwasher.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Well, thank
Thanks
you
so
very
much.
much, sir. I
Yeah.
really appreciate
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.